I'm Bambi Francisco with Vator TV, the network for innovators. We'll move over Google and Facebook. There's a new verb in town. It's called Twitter. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a super simple and addictive service to use. And joining me to talk about Twitter, his fast-growing company and social network, is Jack Dorsey. He is the CEO and the co-founder of Twitter. Jack, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Bambi.
Well, congratulations on the Semize deal recently announced. So $15 million in stock, right?
I don't know about that.
Close? Why buy this company and not just license their technology?
We've always seen filtering and real-time search as a key component of the product and what we offer. Mm-hmm. We see Twitter as a real-time repository of state in addition to a communications tool. So the easiest way to tap into that and to bring out the value of the network and the technology is to have very clever searches and filters. And we looked around the field and we were instantly attracted to what the guys at Semize built. Mm-hmm. We had conversations with them and we went away from the conversation just really impressed with the team and how they approached the work. And it was a great cultural fit. So we decided that we'd have a closer relationship than a limited partnership.
Well, that's important, and I looked at it. I mean, it is really slick, and I've already been using these Twitter. Yeah, I wrote my. I'm going to start doing Twitter ego searches now, and it's very clean. And one of the things that Semize brings to Twitter is really sort of an obvious business model, which is paid search. When you search for somebody or search for a company, it's pretty obvious. You can probably put some search links there. So when will you start integrating paid search, if you're thinking about that?
We're thinking about a bunch of different models, and we've always had ideas for how to monetize the system. Mm-hmm. But we have the approach of building something cool, introducing our friends to it, using it, loving it, working on it nonstop, and watching how people use it, listening very well, and then looking for patterns and establishing those patterns and making the patterns more convenient. Mm-hmm. A lot of monetization, a lot of good monetization models come out of organically from a network and from a technology. Mm-hmm. So we're looking for that same thing with Twitter. And it's a little bit too early right now to apply those because the network is still growing. We still have a lot of work to do to stabilize the system, mm-hmm. to really improve the user interface and make it more accessible for a mainstream audience.
Well, let's stick to sort of the business models you mentioned. What are some of the things that you have been thinking about?
Well, I mean, you can see commercial usage of mm-hmm. the system. We see it with JetBlue, we see it with Dell, and Whole Foods just signed up and they're using it.
And what are they doing?
Actively.
Are they?
Whole Foods and JetBlue and a bunch of companies like Dell and Southwest Air.
Cisco, the LA Fire Department.
Yeah, they started using it as promotional, as a marketing channel. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is they also started using it as a way to tell what people are saying about the brand. So people are talking about Whole Foods. So it's kind of it has a market research aspect, a real-time market research aspect, which presents a very interesting full circle approach towards marketing. You put out a message, you see what people are saying about the brand, and then you can tune that very effectively. Yeah. The really interesting thing is they're also engaging with their customers and the people that use the brand. Mm-hmm. So they're entering into a conversation with people that go to Whole Foods, shop at Whole Foods. Sure. And I just had a 4 or 5 text conversation with them just yesterday because I asked them to open earlier, and the end of that was that they told me to go to the customer service depot.
Did you say, do you know who I am? Well, what do you think? When will you begin charging them a fee? Is it going to be like a fee-based service?
So I mean, there are a lot of ideas around that, but it doesn't make sense to do that until people start using it and we get feedback from these organizations about how they're using it, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. Right. Establishing that sort of model too early could be damaging to both the culture and to the potential.
It could be also how many people they're interacting with. If you're interacting with thousands of people, maybe charge per user or something.
Maybe. There's many ways, but we completed our Series C not too long ago, and our intent with that was to raise enough money so that we could be heads down and really focus on stabilizing the system, building a utility class messaging system, and then improving the user interface so that we can get to monetization.
Right. So yeah, congratulations on Series C. $100 million in valuation.
That's what people say.
That's pretty good. I'm sure you're not denying that. So anyway, what about back to your corporate use? I noticed that CNN and BBC, they're using it as well. So how would you work with news media, the media companies?
Well, news is really interesting because one of our co-founders, Biz, kind of sees the system, and this is a really interesting way to view what Twitter is. It's kind of a news wire, a news service, both for personal use, personal news, like I'm eating a hot dog today, but also for events and for stable news organizations like CNN or Reuters or AP or whatnot. So we found organizations like that just are blasting their breaking news on it, and you can mix that in with what your friends are saying, and what the plant across the hall is saying. So it's become this this status for someone hooked a plant up to Twitter, and it'll tell you what the current moisture of the soil is, and if it needs to be watered. And when you water it, it sends a message, thank you for watering me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's great. It's great. So you have people hooking things up to Twitter as well. So it really truly is becoming the status of everything.
Of where everything is.
Which is really exciting.
And then that you would probably, it's interesting that you call it you're a news wire. And so the model around that is really just licensing the feeds, licensing how much content you're going to bring in.
Potentially. Yeah. It's really what you make of it, and in some cases it's what the businesses make of it. Yeah. CNN uses it in a completely different way from any other organization.
Do you think that do you make any revenue today?
We do make revenue. We have revenue. We don't make money. We have revenue from the carriers, various carriers, because we do have an SMS aspect to the system.
Okay.
And this is not a secret when you start working with SMS traffic. In the world, it's in people's best interest, or the carrier's best interest, to increase that volume.
Okay.
Because they're charging you.
So at least you're getting something. You're getting something in the door.
It's really nothing we ever want to rely on. It's not. It's
a lot
tiny
more.
Little bump in the road. But
what about other ways to monetize subscription? Maybe opt-in, direct marketing. And if you want, have you thought about those type of models?
We've thought about a bunch of different models, but it's really the important thing here is that one listens well to what's going on with the network, and you establish a model that people are comfortable with, and that really helps the usage and helps all usages within the system. And that takes time. It takes a lot of patience to get there, and it takes a lot of resources to get there. So we're making that bet, and we feel that we'll come out on the better side of that.
So you're talking about sort of user experience, and obviously there's been some, lots of reports about the site going down. So what are you doing to address that?
Well, we're buying companies like Semize, who will help increase our engineering effort, but also.
And how many engineers do you have? They had 5, so now you'll have.
They had 5. So
you doubled your engineering.
We are 25 strong, company-wide.
Okay.
And the majority of those are engineering and operations people. And that'll always be the case for us. We have a lot of work to do.
Are you hiring salespeople, ad people, marketing people?
Not right now.
Soon?
Not right now. Our focus still has to be on the technology for quite some time.
Okay.
We have a lot of work to do.
And then what about building your users? You started in 2006. How many users do you have today?
We don't give out our user numbers.
Okay. What kind of metrics? What do you gauge? How many times people are messaging, or what?
Yeah, a successful user for us is someone who gets in, who follows about 10 to 20 people, and updates, on the average of at least one time a day. Updates are very, very important for us because it means that you're sharing information with people. You're contributing to the pulse of what's going on right now.
Sure.
And you're contributing to that greater ecosystem, and you're partaking. We have amazing usage just on the reception side, and that's really, really hard to quantify because we're completely network
people
agnostic.
Following?
Yeah, people interact with the system in different ways. So it's network agnostic. So the technology tends to follow you around. So if you spend the majority of your life through SMS, through an SMS interface, it's there for you. If you spend all day in Facebook, then that's how you receive and send your updates. So, for instance, quantifying how many people see your update in Facebook is not easy for us to calculate. And people have JavaScript badges on their pages, and they have Flash badges, and we have tickers in conference halls, and the updates and the content is just spread all over the place.
So it's tough you're trying to get to that. How do you capture
Right.
updates? So it's a little fuzzy in terms of how many people are updating.
Right.
So what can you really accurately gauge, and what's what are your goals? Like, we need to hit this many, this many people need to have this many followers, or this, I don't know, what's your metrics?
Our biggest goals right now are really uptime. When the system is up,
okay,
and when the system becomes the background. For the past 2 weeks, we've just had measurable success across the board in terms of our stability of the site. And it really becomes background at that point, and it becomes a utility. So people don't even think about sending a message to Twitter. They send the message. They know it's going out to their friends.
right.
They know it's going to the friends are going to receive it in some way, in real time or in some archival method. And that's all they have to worry about. And that's success. So like hooking up different endpoints, other social networks, other technologies, and allowing people to update without thinking about it, removing all malice of forethought, so that they're just putting out the content and just going about their day.
So from the reception side, where's like the, break it down where the majority of people, or what percent are getting their stuff from, Twirl, which I'm starting to use, or from the website, or from the phone, or from Facebook?
The biggest usage is our API. Our API has always been 20 times our web traffic. And that's clients like Twirl, and it's networks like MySpace and Facebook, and the badges and RSS feeders and whatnot.
Do you have more Twitterers on MySpace or Facebook?
I don't know. I don't know which one's heavier. I would imagine it's Facebook, because we have a cleaner application right there now.
Okay.
But we announced something with MySpace not too long ago, so we'll be integrated with them just as well.
What about in terms of what's the predominant platform on which people share? Like, is it through their phones?
Did I say update?
Yeah, update. Sorry.
It's still through the API mainly. API web. And then
so the API can be anywhere, wherever it's okay.
Right. And then it kind of breaks down by market. The interesting thing about the API is that you can use it on a mobile phone as well. So like clients like
mobile
Twitterific
would be counted in the API.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, because like Twitterific for the iPhone, for instance, which just came out a week ago, allows you to, from your iPhone, from anywhere, go through the API and receive updates and update.
So of the API, what's mobile? Is mobile pretty large?
It's probably desktop clients. Mobile. So originally we thought mobile was just going to be huge, and SMS was going to overtake every other modality of entry, but that has turned out not to be the case. And some of that is just the interface and really promoting mobile.
Right.
We could be a lot better in doing that, but also people right now just want a richer experience. I think for me personally, the most engaging experience is SMS. And the real-time interruptive feed of what's going on with my friends.
You like being interrupted?
Well, with a certain few. So I follow like 300 people on the web, but
that's a few.
I've chosen to follow only 5 on my phone.
Wow.
But for those 5 people, yes, I want to be interrupted, because it's important that I know what they're doing. It kind of flavors my day, and I have a context for what's going on in their life, and it makes me feel good. So.
It's kind of nice. I think if my dad were on this, he'd be like Twittering me all day, because he just likes to kind of broadcast himself to everyone and not really respond.
She does the same thing.
Is she on one of the 5?
My entire family's on.
Oh, that's great. So why did so I downloaded Twirl. I finally now I know it. I know I've talked to Loic from Seismic. They bought Twirl, and now I'm on Twirl because I actually really like getting my Twitter updates on this client. So why didn't you buy them?
Why don't we buy them?
Yeah.
It's in our best interest right now, and the community's best interest, to let the client market really go and flourish for itself. We need to do a lot more to help people along the way, like Twitterific and Twirl. We've been having conversations with all of them to improve the experience, but we didn't see it as valuable to buy a specific client when we could really improve the web experience and the API experience, so that they can build a very comfortable face for what their users want to do. So
what if they start monetizing around that,
well,
putting ads on those, and that's kind of your data?
I mean, ideally we're helping to create an ecosystem that makes our developers rich. That would definitely be
so
a goal
it'd be great
for us. So
for them to make money.
if they can figure out a way to monetize the system, then that's something we're interested in supporting. We have to have a conversation with them, and we need to watch what goes on there. But we're definitely interested in
watching them
building
succeed.
an ecosystem. Yeah.
What are we'll talk about that ecosystem. What are some of the other apps being developed that are useful or of interest, and how are you helping to build that ecosystem?
Well, there's a lot of clients, like Twirl is one of the biggest. Twitterific is a long-standing one. Twitterific has a pretty long history with us, and they are the first one to have the source parameter in our feed. It really changed the way we think about API developers. And it's a beautiful Macintosh application that fades in and out as information.
And you use that on your iPhone?
I use it on my iPhone too. It's really well done.
Okay, so that's
Craig
something.
Hockenberry and Icon Factory have made it.
Well, and I'm an iPhone user, so I'll check that out.
Yeah.
What do you think of back to Seesmic? But what do you because it always calls itself the Twitter video Twitter. So what do you? I don't know. How do you see them as a potential competitor if people start doing video? Do you plan on doing video?
We plan on enabling. So Seesmic is interesting. I really like Seesmic personally. I like.
Do you use it?
I don't use video a lot. If I use video, I would use it. I consume a lot of it. So I do definitely watch Loix updates, and I have some other people that I tend to check out every now and then.
This is the most video you're doing ever. This interview.
Yeah,
right?
This is it. This is the quota for the year. So you're welcome. But Seesmic is interesting because, and I really like that they call themselves the Twitter of video, because they've used Twitter in a very creative way to really propagate what Seesmic is, and the integration points between the two services are really good, and I think it's a pretty good relationship.
But you will enable video updates at some point?
I mean, going back to I don't know why I didn't say it in this interview, but Twitter is what people make of it, and sometimes people put in links to video, and they're kind of taking up all that 140 characters with a link to a video. And it'd be more interesting if we could somehow notice that they're trying to do that and just making it more convenient. And we've noticed that a lot. We've noticed that with Seesmic. We've noticed that with YouTube videos. We've noticed that with Quick, for instance. So there's a lot of things that we could just improve our web interface with, and make it easier for people to share video, like on Seesmic or on YouTube. Are we going to host video? No.
Right.
That's,
it would be great, because I Twitter the interviews. I'll Twitter this one for sure, but I have to Twitter a link to the video, so I can't actually upload the video. Well, I wouldn't even upload the video. I'd probably embed it, but there's no way to do that. Right. But that may be something down the future for you.
So I mean, if you consider it from a user experience standpoint, it's kind of frustrating when you receive a link like that on SMS. But it would be nice if you were on a client like Twitterific or Twirl, or on the web, if that expanded for you automatically.
Right.
So that's something we would consider. We're not in the business of hosting anything but text or maybe attributes.
Right. So what about FriendFeed? Do you see them as a competitor?
FriendFeed and places like Plurk and Pounce and Facebook, we see as further ways to interact with the technology, further ways to receive and send updates, and they're really enabling more usage of these updates. So a lot of people spend their day in FriendFeed, and that's how they're comfortable. So we just want to make sure that.
Does that help you?
Yeah, it helps us, because I mean people are consuming Twitter data, and they're also sending updates from that interface. That's just where they're comfortable. So.
Okay. Well, so what do you think of Identica? It's a new company. I think they say they're like Twitter clone.
We've seen a lot of Twitter clones. Identica is very interesting, and something we're definitely watching closely. I think there's a lot of room for building out this concept, and it's our challenge to really help guide conceptual vision of what's going on here. There are going to be many entry points, there are going to be many exit points, and there's going to be many ways people use this technology and have variations on it, and there's room for all.
What about, we talked about a lot of companies online, what about relationships? You know, are you thinking about any relationships with traditional media companies or traditional marketing companies?
Yeah, I mean, the best sort of relationship there is when we find out about it later. When someone like JetBlue or someone like CNN or MTV can come to the service and sign up and immediately get value out of it and start using it, and using it in a very creative way, then we have truly achieved utility class service, because they did not have to interact with us at all. We didn't have to slow them down. They didn't slow us down at all. They were just using it, and they immediately, saw the potential. So we've seen that again and again, and that's our ideal relationship right now as we build out the technology.
Is it important for you to have land one of those before the end of the year? Or
well, we're kind of landing them. It's
not formally though, right? Or
not. I mean, formally it's just them using it consistently.
That's good that they
building
are.
A user base. So.
What's the future of? I mean, what do you think of? You have a post-money valuation of $100 million or so, which you won't confirm it or deny, but which is great, unless you want to confirm it. What's the company next year? What's the growth? What are we going to see? What's going to change?
Well, we're really focused on building that utility class system and really getting more and more mainstream usage, and figuring out where we go from there. We have a lot of ideas about how this technology helps the world, and it's really exciting because I mean, just the SMS aspect, for instance, really allows a huge swath of the population, the global population, to utilize this in helpful and meaningful and valuable ways. So that's what personally excites me about the service, and building this place where you can go and get the status of anything and interact with that, and be able to be on the street and get information about what people are saying about the iPhone or about Obama or about what's going on in China is fascinating. And
it is fascinating. I'm addicted for sure, and I learned a lot about you the last few days. That you're reading that new Salman Rushdie book.
Yes.
How is it? I just learned about that this morning, I think. So I wouldn't have known that. Exactly. So we'll talk about that in our next interview, how Twitter is changing the way we socialize and communicate, and so you're going to stick around for the next interview. So I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Jack Dorsey, he's the CEO and co-founder of Twitter. I'm Bambi Francisco.